1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore, stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids, ages 8 and 5.
And I have 3 kids. They are 14, 11, and 11.
Welcome to a Screen Time in the News episode for the week of June 26, 2024. We have a twofer in Screen Time articles this week. One echoes the conversation we had several months ago about screen time and diet culture. The other is actually more about grown-up screen time, but I found it and I thought it would strike a chord with Deborah. So I think we can go through both of them fairly quickly. The first article was published in Time on June 5th, which Time, I know, still out there, still publishing stories. Amazing, right? And it had the headline, Stop Counting Screen Time. It's an essay by Kendra Thomas, an associate professor of psychology at Hope College, who researches child and adolescent development. I feel like we covered a lot of our feelings about this in our diet culture episode, which we'll link to in the show notes. But in short, this article says we should give up counting screen time just as we've given up counting calories. It's a complete embrace of using diet language to talk about screens. I feel very safe in saying Virginia Soul Smith would hate it. It argues not that we shouldn't count minutes of screen time because it is just as harmful as obsessive calorie counting, but that we shouldn't count minutes of screen time because our language about diets has moved away from calorie counting, and we should reframe our conversations about screen time to match. I really think this framing was quite unnecessary, but the author makes some familiar points I think we both agree with broadly. She points out that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations for screen time are based on an old model of kids sitting down in front of TV screens, and they haven't adapted to our phone-toting, social media-obsessed age. Very true. And she also advises parents not to focus on quantity, but to focus on content and context. Yes, of course, find the good content and free yourself from guilt. That is what we do here. On the whole, this article retreads some common sense advice, but doesn't offer any revelatory advice on how to help kids navigate screen time safely, at least not that I found. But I do have some important questions for you, Deborah. Have you ever counted calories?
No, not ever officially. I mean, that's not to say I've never watched what I ate or participated in diet culture, but I have never ever counted calories. And I will tell you, because I'm not a math person. And so I did like her argument. There's a sentence in there that's like counting is stupid, basically. And I can get on board with that. Numbers are a construct, Katie.
A necessary construct by which we understand our world.
Numbers aren't real. I'm going to start a TikTok. That birds aren't real.
Yeah, you are the new birds aren't real. Numbers aren't real. I can see the world falling apart. That is one way to dismantle AI, if you just dismantle the very concept of ones and zeros.
Have you ever counted calories in the way that she's talking about, where you just simply count energy going in, not counting what the values of that energy is?
Oh my gosh, yes, Deborah. In the 90s, I had an encyclopedia that was an actual book. It was a paperback book, not too giant, but you could look up the caloric values of your food and then write them down. It was a physical copy of a book. And then when the internet age was upon us, I used various websites to track my calories, myfooddiary.com was a big one for me for a while. And then when we moved into the smartphone age, it became MyFitnessPal, which is, I feel like, the go-to free app right now, unless people are just doing it through their Apple Health app now. I don't know. But I've counted calories a ton in my life, and I can confirm that it is a huge amount of work. And like counting calories, though I've done it at various times in my life, I can also confirm that it's not very useful.
Yeah, there were some odd examples in here. Like the one she used is like eating a candy bar before you go to bed is metabolized differently than eating a candy bar before you go for a run. And it's like, I don't think eating a candy bar before bed or before a run is very good. Either one. I'm not anti-candy bar.
You have a different ideal time of day for a candy bar? First thing in the morning?
I mean, I like to jog, and I would like a candy bar before a run? What are you talking about? Is that a thing?
How much of your screen time policy involves, or did involve at one point, because I know your kids are getting older, counting the actual minutes your kids are on screens?
Well, we do time limits for video game time, the Cheetos of screen time, if you will. I mean, I can't, it's so easy to make like junk food comparisons with screen time. So we do limit and time that. One thing that's worked for us lately is instead of saying like, you have 5 minutes left, now is the end of your 5 minutes. We just like, when we start, we just give like a hard time to be done. Like, okay, you're done at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
And that's working better for us. But like my kids are older, they can tell time. They have a concept of how long an hour is. Whereas like, I don't think a 4-year-old really can tell how long an hour it feels.
Yeah, so, you need that 10-minute warning, 5-minute warning, 2-minute warning a lot more when they're younger.
With even better, like one of those sand timers, like a visual sand going through the hourglass so they can conceptualize it better. How about you? Are you counting minutes of kids on screens?
I mean, I think you know from 7+ years of podcasting with me about this that we've never been great about adhering to the association or the American Pediatric Association's guidelines to the letter. Like, we've never counted like, oh, you're at 59 minutes. Like, we have to make sure to turn it off or your little brain will turn to mush. We've tried to be cautious in other ways and focus on giving them other experiences, but we've never counted things down to the minute.
Yeah.
The author talks about how we now recognize the fats in an avocado have benefits that the fats in a chocolate cake or a candy bar do not, and that recognition is not captured in calorie counting. She writes, quote, "Passive scrolling and watching videos are similar to the simple fats and sugars, fastest to digest and most detrimental long term. The most nutritious options were educational games and reading. You copped to using junk food language earlier in this podcast and also in our Screens and Diet Culture podcast with your kids when discussing screen time. Have you made any conscious effort to change that framing since our last episode on the topic, or did this article make you feel freer to use it again without guilt?"
I don't have a problem with equating. I mean, like, I can't get on board with Virginia Soul Smith, like, fear no food, because for me, I know that too much sugar is bad for me personally, and I know that too much sugar isn't good for my kids either. And like, I just can't get on board with like, eat whatever you want, whenever you want, how much you want. But I also don't. So I don't know. I'm kind of like in the middle on both of these things, I guess. I will probably continue. And like part of it is because I grew up in those 1990s Weight Watcher Point years, diet promises on every cover of every magazine. Like, just like I said, I didn't count calories, but that doesn't mean like I have like a healthy relationship with food or that I ever did, right? It's just like I never like wrote down the calories because I'm not like into math. No, this article didn't shift my thinking. In fact, I kind of wondered like what the point of it was, but I think maybe we're not the average time reader. I think because we do a podcast on screen time topics and we've read articles for years and years. So I don't think we're the target audience for this article.
Right. In fact, I wonder if families with kids young enough to be worried about screen time even is the average demo for time. Like, wouldn't you think their demographics would skew more boomer?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's been ages since I saw an actual Time magazine in the wild, so
I only ever see the special edition ones that are like, ooh,
yeah.
some celebrity just died. We're going to put their picture on a cover and do like a whole issue, a whole physical issue about whoever this person was.
Yeah, it seemed like this writer was trying to establish herself as somewhat of an expert with like kind of a new idea about this. It makes me wonder if she's like shopping a book proposal around or something. Like I would be interested in probably reading something more long form. It didn't work for me quite in this short form format because I felt like it was none of the information was new, even the analogies weren't new, but that's like because you and I we live and breathe screen time and mom guilt.
We
like
do.
we get it.
We're swimming in that soup. And I just, yeah, again, I just thought the whole connection to food and dieting was so unnecessary because her larger point that content and context are king when it comes to screen time is true and resonant
Right.
and something that people need to hear often and in a lot of different ways. So just hammer that. I don't need you to tell me how reading a book on my Kindle is like eating an avocado.
Right.
So excuse me for a moment while I climb up onto my soapbox, because before we end with this article, I just have to comment on the fact that the author blames screens for, quote, bumping out free unstructured time. Boredom stimulates creativity and often catalyzes new ideas and aha moments, end quote. Again, for the millionth time and loudly, this unwillingness to let our children experience boredom is an across-the-board problem of modern parenting and should not be laid at the feet of screens. Please, Time, whatever media outlet, give me more articles about how our always-on parenting culture bumps out free, unstructured time for boredom. Agree? Disagree? What do you think? I'll climb down.
100% agree with you. I'm absolutely on the same page of the electronic Kindle screen.
Can I just share my latest moment of intense mom guilt related to always on parenting with you, which I might or might not cut out of this podcast episode?
I would love to hear it.
So this year, I have had to stop going and sitting in the waiting room for Kenny's dance lessons because I had to take his brother Jay to a different appointment that happened at the same time.
Oh no. You dropped off your child and left.
And let me tell you what happened and what I've been blaming myself for intensely. So they thought he wasn't participating in the recital, even though I called and left like a detailed voicemail message. The fact that I wasn't there to reiterate whatever I said in the voicemail message means that they thought he wasn't participating in the recital. They never ordered him a costume. So when we eventually cleared that up, they just had him like dancing in the back on the side, and you can barely see him in the whole performance. And of course, I blamed myself for not being there and being present to like monitor every moment of his dance life. When really, this should be a thing that like the dance school is very capable of taking care of. And it shouldn't be a problem that I couldn't be sitting in there on my butt for an hour every week, largely doing nothing. So that's my latest. It can't all be about screens. We're expected to be ever present in our children's lives in every way. It's not just screens.
That's really... Like, why can't they just listen to their voicemail messages? Oh my gosh.
Right. How do you run a business for 37 plus years and not listen to your voicemail messages?
Like, does every other child have a parent who stays there the whole practice? Every rehearsal?
I mean, the waiting room is always very crowded. So I guess maybe that's how they tell the people who are serious from the people who aren't. And that makes me sad and makes me blame myself. So here I am doing it again. Let's move on to our next episode. Our next article.
Sorry. Okay.
All right, so another point the author makes is that we should shift screen time away from bedtime, which dovetails nicely with our second article for today, which I largely chose because I know you, Deborah, find it somewhat hilarious when I choose articles from the Wall Street Journal. It feels like all concrete recommendations when it comes to health are eventually displaced by the "it depends" approach. And if you're a person who thrives on concrete rules, this can be super frustrating. We read a May 29th article from the Wall Street Journal with the provocative headline, "Screen time before bed might not be that bad after all." This article is not actually that revelatory and just serves to remind us that, guess what? Everybody is different. Essentially, this article alerts us that the advice we've been given to limit screens an hour or two before bedtime is a little too black and white. Some people can handle screen time before bed, while it can be too stimulating for others. And that dreaded blue light, it turns out the studies showed the worst it did was delay sleep by 10 minutes. So, Deborah, talk to me about your pre-bedtime screen hygiene routine, because I feel like you must have one.
My kids like to have some video game time in the evening, and then we end that 8:30 I mentioned earlier, and then after that it's like you can read. That's usually when they take a bath or a shower. So yeah, I do think that Tony has his phone in his bedroom, which probably isn't great, but he's also like getting to the age where his circadian rhythm is such that like he is more biologically programmed to stay up late and sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like his argument is like that's how he's communicating with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's like watching stuff on it, so we haven't limited that, but I've thought about it.
Right.
For myself, I am very dogmatic about limiting screens before bed. Like, we'll watch a show, but then after that, I'll like read a book or read on a Paperwhite Kindle, which doesn't have which to me isn't the same as a screen. It's the same as reading a book. And we don't have a TV in our bedroom.
Do you feel like it helps to be that rigorous with your own screen time use in the evenings?
I mean, I have found that like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I look at my phone, then it's really hard to get back to sleep. But if I wake up in the middle of the night and I just don't look at my phone, it's easier to get back to sleep. So, I mean, that's like what I'm basing all of my pre-bedtime routine for myself on.
Right.
How about you?
Well, ever since the kids were little, we've done like a wind down halvesy before bed. So we don't really limit like the watching of a show. We try to limit the content. We don't like watch something super stimulating or scary right before bed. And it's never seemingly affected their sleep in a detrimental way. Neither of them have devices in their rooms just because they don't have phones yet. And I think Kenny at least is young enough that like if he has access to the electronics, he's going to play them until they're taken away. So we're just not at the self-regulation state yet. In terms of my own pre-bedtime routine, I will often do like a crossword puzzle on my phone or something before bed to wind down and then berate myself for it later. But but yeah, I'm often listening to a book as I'm doing a crossword puzzle, and that's kind of, I count it as book reading time. I don't know. I'm a terrible sleeper, so maybe it is a problem for me, but I've never been able to fully sever that evening phone use cord. So this article kind of made me feel like maybe it's unnecessary. I don't know.
Maybe you should try it for like 3 nights and see if it makes a difference to not look at your phone like half an hour before.
That's probably a good idea, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do that, all the while knowing that I probably won't actually.
But I thought everything I've read about blue light and phones before bed and screens in bedrooms was like, you won't sleep. But this is like, you might fall asleep 10 minutes later than if you hadn't, which that's not a big deal.
All the alarmist articles we've read up to this point about like getting your blue light filtering glasses and it's the worst thing possible. So hilarious. I thought this was a fun read.
But don't let my kids know about this article.
Okay, parents, we will retroactively advise you to not listen to this with your kids.
Do we have time for some general catch up on our screen time?
I think we always have time for general catch up.
Are you watching anything with your kids, or are they watching anything that you want to share with our listeners?
Controversial pick here. We recently watched not the latest Ghostbusters movie, but the one before it, Ghostbusters Afterlife, where they kind of introduced Ghostbusters: The Next Generation. And I had heard nothing but absolutely terrible things about this latest reboot of the Ghostbusters franchise. So I had steered clear of it, thinking it would be awful. And let me tell you that I did not factor in how much I love any sort of getting the team together component to a show or movie when I discounted this, because I just found the entire first 2/3 of the movie, where it's like introducing the kids to the concept of the Ghostbusters and like reintroducing the Ecto-1 and the proton guns and everything. I found that to be so fun and just joyful in a way that I had not thought that it could be. So while I thought the end of the movie was largely rocky, I had so much fun, and my kids had so much fun watching the earlier bits.
Nice.
I don't know. Have you seen the new Ghostbusters at all?
I have not. No. Well, I should put that on my list.
I was really surprised. I mean, I'm just one person's opinion, and largely everyone else's opinion has been negative. So feel free to decide how much you trust me. But we had a lot of fun with it. How about you? What have you been watching with your kids, or what have your kids been watching?
Libby and I just rewatched Elemental, which is really good.
Oh, another Pixar. So that one is on your repeatable Pixar list.
Yeah, the animation is so good.
Do you feel like it's improved on repeated viewings?
I think I liked it about the same. I thought it was good when I saw it last summer.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what's on your watch list? Anything you're watching for your kid-free grown-up screen time?
All right, so we're at the end of June. We've had a lot of new stuff coming out the month of June, but weirdly, Kevin and I have been doing a rewatch of season 7 of Outlander, which covers part of what might be my favorite Outlander book. So I've just really been enjoying revisiting that, because it's more of like a timey-wimey take on the Outlander universe. There's a lot more split timeline stuff, and that's kind of very much my jam with this franchise. And we've also been watching the new Star Wars show, Acolyte. And
what do you think of that?
my opinion is mixed. I think, as with most Star Wars shows, Kevin is enjoying it more than I am, just because he's more of the Star Wars fan. I'm definitely liking it more than I have other Star Wars shows. I'm enjoying it more than, say, Ahsoka or Obi-Wan. So in that sense, it's been more successful for me. And we're definitely going to finish it out to the end. But yeah, meh, I guess, would be my general takeaway. How about you? What's on your watch list?
We tried the Sympathizer first couple episodes, and Jeremy didn't read the book, so he wasn't as into it as I was, and I wasn't as into it as I thought I would be. So I'll probably watch that one by myself. We finished Hacks, so Hannah Einbinder has like a comedy special that's on my list.
Okay.
I want to watch. And then we started Presumed Innocent with Jake Gyllenhaal and Peter Sarsgaard, who I love. I haven't seen him in anything in a long time. I feel like he aged.
Yeah, he used to be like a must-buy movie ticket actor for me. Like if I saw he was in the movie, I was definitely seeing it. So you're right. I haven't seen him in a long while.
Yeah, he's a must-watch for me too, but I don't know what he's been doing, and look for him to appear in a gritty HBO reboot soon.
Yeah, now he's top of mind. Can I ask you a general question about book to show or book to movie adaptations? Because I feel as I get older, book to movie adaptations were once a must-watch for me, just to see how the adaptation worked, and because I was curious. And I find now I'm much more likely to watch a little bit of them and be like, you know what? I feel like it's fine that I just consume this in one of two ways, and I don't need to do it in both. Do you find you have any of those feelings, or are you still really interested in seeing the second take on it?
If I've read the book, I usually want to see the show. Yes. But if I see the show or movie, I don't necessarily feel like I need to read the book.
Okay, so it only goes one way. And do you feel like even if the show isn't wowing you after you've read the book, you'll still stick with it because you want to see how faithful they are?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I kind of think of them as two completely different forms of a story.
That seems like a healthy way to consume media right there, Deborah.
Thank you. What do you feel like compelled to do in that situation?
Oh, just like with now how I feel free to not finish a book that I start if I'm not into it, I am the same way with TV shows. Definitely, movies maybe a little bit less so because they're less of a commitment. But if I've read the book and liked it and I watch the show and it's not doing it for me, I'm like, I already know how this ends. I can peace out. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to this Screen Time in the News episode. We'll be off next week for the 4th of July holiday, but we'll be back on July 10th with our review of Despicable Me 4. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to one friend you think would like it too. We love growing our community of parents for sanity in screen time. Never want to miss our up-to-the-minute thoughts about screen time? Head over to our website and sign up for updates. It's myscreentime2.com. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to and sometimes because we like to. Bye.
Bye.
Screen time. Screen time. Screen time. Screen time.
My screen